The combine died at 2:17 in the afternoon. Not gradually. Not with warning lights slowly building into disaster. It simply stopped. 1 second the machine rolled steadily through soybeans beneath the October sun, unloading golden grain into the hopper while dust drifted behind it. The next, silence. The unloading auger froze. The engine dropped into limp mode. Then the monitor flashed red across the cab screen. System access restricted. Contact authorized service provider. Sarah Bennett stared at the screen, then blinked, then read it again. Because machinery breaks. Hydraulics fail. Belts snap. Bearings explode. Farmers understand those things. But this felt different. Below the message sat a phone number. Sarah pressed the steering wheel harder. No. The word escaped quietly. Outside the cab, 300 acres of soybeans stretched toward the horizon beneath a pale Iowa sky. 300 acres still standing. 300 acres with rain forecasted in 48 hours. 300 acres waiting on the only combine she owned. She grabbed the radio. Tyler. Static crackled. Then, yeah. Come out to Northfield. Pause. What happened? Sarah looked back at the monitor. I don't know yet. But deep down, she already hated whatever the answer would be. 20 minutes later, Tyler pulled beside the combine in an old pickup covered in welding dust and toolboxes. He climbed out carrying a socket set. 19 years old. Tall. Lean. Dark hair. Oil stains permanently living on his hands no matter how much he washed them. Sarah pointed toward the monitor. Tyler climbed into the cab. Read the screen. Then frowned. That's weird. Weird bat. Usually yes. They called the dealer. Sarah put the phone on speaker. A cheerful voice answered immediately. Midwest Agricultural Solutions. Sarah explained the shutdown. The man asked for machine information. Serial number. Model year. Software version. Long silence followed. Then keyboard sounds. More silence. Finally. Looks like you've triggered a system restriction event. Sarah stared. What? A system lock condition. Tyler looked confused. The machine isn't broken? Not physically. Sarah frowned harder. Then why isn't it moving? The man cleared his throat. The operating software detected an access fault. Silence. Sarah blinked slowly. You speaking English? Tyler looked down, trying not to laugh. The dealer continued. To restore operation, we'll need a technician visit. How much? Long pause. Sarah hated long pauses. $9,500 including travel, diagnostics, and unlock authorization. The barn went completely silent. Even Tyler stopped moving. Sarah looked toward the fields through the windshield. $9,000 for what? Software service. No, she said quietly. For what? Another pause. System restoration. Tyler leaned toward the phone. You mean you're charging $9,500 to push a button? Sir, it's more complex than that. Tyler looked at Sarah. Sarah looked back. Both of them knew exactly what he was thinking. The dealer continued talking about proprietary systems and authorization protocols. Sarah stopped listening halfway through, because all she heard was this. Rain in 48 hours. $9,500. Harvest standing in the field. After the call ended, Tyler stared at the monitor again, then laughed once. Not because it was funny, because anger sometimes exits looking like laughter. They locked the combine. Sarah crossed her arms. That doesn't even sound legal. Tyler shrugged. Doesn't sound mechanical either. The Bennett farm had already survived 2 ugly years. Drought first, then fertilizer prices, then diesel. Sarah had taken over operations 6 years earlier after her husband passed away unexpectedly. Since then, every season felt like holding together machinery and finances with fencing wire and stubbornness. The combine itself nearly broke them buying it. Used. 6 years old. Supposedly reliable. Loaded with more electronics than the first moon missions. The salesman called it smart farming. Sarah called it expensive farming. Now she sat staring at a dead machine in the middle of harvest because software decided she needed permission to keep working. Dale Harper drove out that evening after hearing the story. News travels fast in farm country. Especially bad news. You serious? He asked. Sarah nodded. $9,500. Dale whistled softly. To unlock it? Yes. He stared toward the combine parked beside the barn. That's insane. Tyler sat on an overturned bucket nearby, quietly scrolling through his phone. Dale noticed. What's he doing? Tyler looked up. Reading. Reading what? Tyler shrugged. Stuff. That answer bothered Sarah immediately because she knew her son. Tyler only got quiet when something caught his attention. Around dinner, he disappeared into the house. Then the garage. Then the barn. An hour later, Sarah found him sitting at an old workbench surrounded by wires, manuals, and a dusty laptop that looked old enough to qualify as farm equipment itself. She folded her arms. "What are you doing?" Tyler didn't look up. "Looking at something." "Tyler." He sighed. "The combine's basically a computer." Sarah stared. "No, it is." "No, it's a combine." "Mom." He turned the screen around. Pages of diagrams covered the display. Code. Forums. Technical discussions. Electronic systems. Sarah frowned. "I don't understand any of this." Tyler nodded. "Me neither." "Comforting. But I'm starting to." He looked back at the screen. "There's people online talking about these locks." Sarah sat down beside him. "People fix them?" Tyler hesitated. Maybe. The machine still works mechanically." He pointed toward the barn. "Engine's fine. Hydraulics fine. Everything's fine." Sarah looked toward the combine, sitting dark and silent in the shadows. "Except permission." Tyler stared at the laptop a while, then smiled slightly. The smile made Sarah nervous immediately. "What?" He looked up. "What if they're counting on people not asking questions?" Sarah narrowed her eyes. "What does that mean?" Tyler reached beneath the bench and held up something small. Very small. An old used laptop power cord. Then he pointed toward a receipt lying beside him. Sarah picked it up. $40. Used laptop purchase. She looked back at him. "Tyler." He looked toward the combine. Then back at her. "I think I want to try something." Outside, rain clouds had already started building along the western horizon. Sarah barely slept that night. Not because of the money. Because of Tyler. At 19, her son had a long history of dangerous sentences beginning with, "I think I can fix it." Sometimes those sentences ended with success. Sometimes they ended with smoke. Once they ended with a lawn mower launching itself through part of the chicken fence. So when she walked into the barn at 5:30 the next morning and found Tyler already awake beside the old workbench, she wasn't entirely surprised. She was concerned. The combine sat in the shadows like a giant sleeping animal. Laptop open. Wires spread everywhere. Coffee growing cold beside handwritten notes. Tyler looked exhausted, which usually meant progress. Or disaster. Sometimes both. Sarah leaned against the doorway. "You sleep?" "Little. Eat. Sort of." "Tyler." He sighed. "I had cereal." Sarah walked closer. The old laptop looked ancient enough to belong in a museum. Cracks along the casing. Missing sticker corners. Keys polished smooth from years of use. $40. $40 against a $9,500 lock. Tyler pointed toward the screen. "I found people talking about access systems." Sarah stared at the code moving across the display. "Okay. Some machines communicate through diagnostic ports." "Okay. They use authorization checks." "Tyler." He looked up. She pointed at the screen. "English." He smiled. "The combine asks for permission." Sarah nodded slowly. "I know that part. What if I can convince it permission already exists?" Silence. Sarah stared. "That's a thing." Tyler looked toward the combine. "I don't know." That wasn't comforting. Outside, rain clouds continued building in thick gray layers. By afternoon, forecast changed. 48 hours became 36. Then 30. Dale Harper arrived around lunch, carrying sandwiches and curiosity. He stepped into the barn and froze. Tyler sat inside the combine cab, with cables running toward the laptop below. Dale blinked. "What exactly am I looking at?" Sarah folded her arms. "Either a miracle or a felony." Tyler laughed from inside the cab. Still deciding. Dale climbed onto the steps and stared at the screen. "You can actually do this?" Tyler shrugged. "Maybe." Dale looked toward Sarah. "You're letting him?" Sarah looked at the silent combine, then at the dark clouds outside. "I don't think I have better options." Hours passed. Tyler tried one approach. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Then another. Still nothing. The combine remained dead. The same message stayed glowing on the screen. System access restricted. By evening, Tyler finally climbed down slowly. Sarah already recognized the expression. Defeat. Not complete defeat. The early stages. He sat on an overturned bucket quietly. "I thought I had it." Sarah sat beside him. Neither spoke a while. Rain started tapping softly against the barn roof. Bad sign. Very bad sign. Tyler stared toward the combine. "I hate this." Sarah looked over. "Hate what?" "That everything works." He pointed toward the machine. "Everything. Engine works. Hydraulics work. Transmission works." He shook his head. "And it still just sits there." The rain grew heavier outside. Sarah remembered her husband saying something years earlier. Machines are honest. If something breaks, you fix the broken part. Simple. Except now honesty felt gone. Now machinery needed permission. Tyler stood suddenly. Wait. Sarah looked up. What? He stared toward the laptop. Then toward the combine. Then back again. No way. He hurried toward the workbench. Dale frowned. What? Tyler didn't answer. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Screen after screen flashed by. Then he grabbed a notebook. Flipped pages. Compared numbers. Sarah stood. Tyler. Still nothing. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then suddenly. Tyler looked up. Eyes wide. No way. Dale climbed to his feet. What? Tyler looked toward the combine. The fault code. Sarah frowned. What about it? I was looking at authorization systems. He pointed toward the screen. Wrong thing. Silence. Then. What? Tyler laughed once. Not angry this time. Excited. The lock wasn't the problem. He stood. The software thought a sensor failed. Sarah blinked. That's good. Tyler grabbed tools. Very. 20 minutes later, he climbed beneath the combine access panel with a flashlight. Rain hammered the roof harder now. Dale and Sarah stood watching silently. Then Tyler's voice echoed upward. Found it. Sarah stepped closer. Found what? A damaged connector. He slid back out holding a wire harness. Tiny crack. Almost invisible. Moisture had gotten inside. The sensor error triggered a chain reaction inside the software system. And the software, thinking something critical had failed, locked everything. Tyler cleaned contacts. Repaired wiring. Reset the system through the diagnostic port. Then climbed back into the cab. Silence filled the barn. Rain pounded overhead. Tyler pressed the ignition. Nothing happened immediately. Sarah held her breath. Dale stared. Tyler frowned. Then, the screen flickered. The warning disappeared. A second later, the engine roared alive. The barn exploded with noise. Sarah jumped. Dale shouted something nobody understood. Tyler just stared. Because for a moment, he couldn't believe it either. Outside, rain continued falling. But inside, the combine lived again. Sarah climbed into the cab and hugged Tyler, so hard he nearly hit the steering wheel. You did it. He laughed. No. She looked at him. Yes. Dale climbed onto the steps grinning. So. Tyler looked over. So. Dale folded his arms. You unlocked a $9,500 combine with a $40 laptop. Tyler shook his head. No. He looked toward the machine. I fixed a broken wire. The story spread through Mason County before harvest finished. Then spread farther. Farmers called. Mechanics called. Reporters eventually called. Because people understood something bigger happened inside that barn. The problem wasn't just cost. It was control. Months later, someone asked Tyler during an interview what he felt after fixing the combine. He thought a while before answering, then said, "The crazy part wasn't that I fixed it." The reporter waited. Tyler looked across the fields where combines moved through autumn sunlight. The crazy part was realizing it barely needed fixing at all. That quote followed him for years. Because every harvest after that, somebody eventually repeated the same sentence. They wanted $9,500 to unlock the machine. Her son fixed it with a $40 laptop in the barn. But people remembered the ending wrong. Because Tyler never beat the combine. He beat the idea that farmers needed permission to repair something they already owned.